Welcome back, everyone. It is time to take on the quick run mode. I'm going to be driving through my favourite tracks in the game. We can press select to access our settings. I'm doing 5 laps and we are getting rid of the stupid coins. So we can just cruise on 100cc. Take it away for us, Yoshi. The first one, I like all these tracks pretty much, but I'm choosing Riverside Park. It's probably my favourite out of the lot. So we can just focus on racing. This is the mode of the game I like the most. Apart from my terrible driving, still. You don't have to worry about coins. Just cruise. And you do actually get to appreciate the tracks a bit more when you're not having to go out of your way. The design of the tracks is also much clearer. You can tell that the tracks made for Super Circuit are actually designed to work with the game's handling system. They are smooth, fairly smooth, they're not overly punishing. Especially true of the early tracks. I'm going all over the place because I'm probably not used to the lighter characters as much. Yeah, really, you can make these turns. They're never really exaggerated. The ones you find in the Super Mario Kart tracks, seem actively designed to screw you over. There are some ridiculous hairpins that you can't do without going off the edge. The coin placement in those tracks is simply dreadful. To be honest, sometimes I look at all the problems Super Mario Kart had, the blatant cheating on the part of the AI, the terrible handling, the hazards that only affected you, and I wonder, how did it make it past the SNES game? Something must have been fun about it. Mario Kart 64 was bland as hell. I really, really don't like that game because it's just not interesting. It's probably come across as a lot more dated today. But I just don't think it's very enjoyable. Kind of ironic that I think it was about Christmas '97, there was a bit of a dispute between me and my brother over which game we were going to wind up getting for Christmas. He wanted Mario 64. I, in my childish naivete, wanted Mario Kart 64. We flipped a coin. I lost. And looking back, I think I've probably never had better results out of losing. Mario 64 is something I still adore to this day. I don't care if it looks blocky, I don't care about the crappy camera. I know that that's what happens when a game winds up getting a bit older and outdated in its technology. That sort of thing happens. I just love pretty much everything about it. On the other hand, I despise Mario Kart 64. Not so much despise, but I don't like it. The red shells are really terrible. They will go straight for their target, which means they'll wind up crashing into walls, and we're going to Cheeseland. The handling is simply awful, which you'll notice is a running trend. Up until about Mario Kart DS, where they actually added a handling stat, there wasn't really anything you could charitably call handling. But in all honesty, I just found Mario Kart 64 kind of irritating and a bit bland, with the exception of its Rainbow Road, which is my favourite in the entire series, and I was really, really ticked off when it got shortened for Mario Kart 8. I didn't mind that it was so long because it was just a fun track with beautiful aesthetics. That's the one thing I actually did like about Mario Kart 64. Am I going to make it? Just. So yeah, I understand that There were maybe a couple of issues with the original F-Zero. The AI cheated. But then again, that was fairly commonplace. You kind of had to make the AI cheat in racing games because they didn't have very good AI. But in all fairness, while the original F-Zero was a bit odd at times, FZero X sacrificed some of the graphics to keep everything running at a smooth 60 frames per second. It was quite an enjoyable technical achievement. F-Zero Maximum Velocity was pretty good. I have played that and I did enjoy it. It's an improvement on the mechanics of the original F-Zero. And then FZero GX was just a masterpiece. Visually beautiful, orally beautiful, technically fantastic. Yes, the story mode was difficult as hell, unnecessarily so. And some of the cups could be a bit frustrating as well, but in all honesty, it set standards for racing games that would be pretty tough to match, and I don't think that Mario Kart wound up matching those standards until 8. And even then, 8 has its problems because 12 races means 4 more AIs ganging up on you. Yeah, they're programmed to just ram you. Yeah, that was the problem we had with Mario Kart Wii. Double Dash was a pretty good game with a really nice new addition in terms of the 2 to a kart thing. I appreciate that and I wish it would come back. Now this one, it's really hard to pick, so we've gone with Cheap Cheap Island. Just had to close my eyes and shuffle at random, basically. We get a very nice sunset cruise. I did enjoy the 2 to a kart aspect in Double Dash, as I said. It was very fun, made for a bit of strategy, and was the first one to allow you to select different karts. It actually added some pretty nice touches to the series. The handling was still shocking, but fortunately DS would come along and give us actual handling, some really good tracks, great retro tracks, and actually a largely cheating-free experience after Double Dash did admittedly start to delve into the substitute item spam for actual AI skill that the series, I feel, has followed to its detriment. Mario Kart Wii is probably the nadir of this. With all the dangerous items that could be used against you, you were going to get bombarded with all sorts of things, constantly. It was a real pain in the ass trying to get anywhere on that game. And, I mean, leaving aside the issues with bikes making things unbalanced, I legitimately did not enjoy playing that game because it always felt like things were weighted against me. And that has been my big complaint with the Mario Kart series. So often, it feels like the odds are against me. I know that F-Zero can be incredibly frustrating. Mario Kart is easy to pick up and play. You don't have to be good at it because you can just drive on 50cc. And its multiplayer is very accessible as well. That is probably its greatest strength over F-Zero. That accessibility of multiplayer, the fact you can get your friends around to play it and you don't have to be very good to do so. You can just sort of have a bit of fun. There will probably be plenty of salt involved because somebody's going to get a blue shell at the worst possible time, but overall it's still pretty fun because anyone can play it. And once again, I've managed to ram Toad without having him run into one of my green shells. Colorblind there. F-Zero is not as beginner friendly, and that's probably its big issue. It requires you to have a bit of skill. Okay, I actually wound up driving along the the edge of the bridge. That's interesting. Don't know why that jumps there. But in all fairness, I feel that insistence on having skill is kind of a boon for F-Zero. Because I can speak from experience. I did do some of the work getting some of the character videos for FZero GX. The first time I got one, my favourite racer, the Skull, I didn't actually win a single race. I was able to get it because I could carefully take my key rivals out of the race and still finish fairly high up. Using that knowledge of the track, coupled with the fact I got better, learned how to take the turns, when to boost, things like that, my results were better and better. And that was not very good at all. Compare this to my attempts at trying to beat the Star Cup on 150cc with 3 stars on Mario Kart 7. It took me well over 100 tries because I tended to get dumped off the track by a blue shell or lightning bolt. This was especially prevalent on Piranha Plant Pipeway because I'd almost always have that sort of misfortune befall me on the last lap. Going over that big glider section at the end, blue shell or lightning bolt. It would happen on other tracks, and because of the very specific requirements needing you to be in first for a while, on the very last track it would often be much harder for me to get into first place. I drive incredibly well, but the AI would just stay in front and not leave first place until it was too late for me to do anything about it. There'd be a point where they'd suddenly mysteriously slow down. Even though I'd thrown together fairly fast builds, I couldn't catch them until they decided I could, which was usually the point where it was too late for me to actually spend enough time in first to get 3 stars. You also had to be very particular about the coins you got, and of course after a while you couldn't use the shortcut boost on Woohoo Mountain Loop as well. So whereas I will admit FZero GX was incredibly punishing right from the start, over time actually learning the way the game played gave me a much better experience, and the game rewarded my dedication with better results. With Mario Kart, on the other hand, I tend to feel that the game has always punished my attempts to get better at it. Eventually, you will get to a point where you just thrash everyone and you don't have to worry about these sorts of things. But I felt that no matter how hard I tried to get there, the game simply didn't want to let me. So somehow Wario, who was nowhere in sight, was apparently only 11 seconds behind me. And we're on to the last lot. Nearly wrapped up this particular episode. We're going for Lakeside Park. Wario is getting massive head trauma and DK is on fire. So yeah, that's probably why I've had it in for the Mario Kart series. I tend to feel that its mechanics have largely punished human players. It was clear from the outset in the first one. It was very clear that the AI in F-Zero tended to cheat as well, since on Master difficulty it would always drive at a top speed of 478 kilometers an hour and would always have perfect cornering. Certain races were actually impossible to win on Master with the Golden Fox. But I feel that F-Zero did ultimately grow out of it. I've enjoyed everything F-Zero X did, even if graphically it wasn't that great. It's always felt entertaining to me. You do need a bit of skill, and I'll admit I'm generally pretty terrible at racing games, as you've had a really good opportunity to see throughout this project. But there's been something I've always found in F-Zero that I felt Mario Kart has lacked. But apart from those really crappy tracks I don't like putting up with, Super Circuit overall is a very good game. It doesn't really have a lot of cheating going on. The tracks designed for Super Circuit are incredibly enjoyable. They look beautiful. It plays pretty well overall. And to be honest, the SNES tracks aren't a fault of this game, it's the fault of the SNES game being a bit ordinary. So while it's nice to actually have that opportunity, and how is Peach sticking on my ass for so long? It's just not leaving. This ought to do. Whoa. Okay, so things went badly wrong there, but like, in all fairness, for all the complaining I've done, it's really only a small handful of tracks I genuinely hate, and they're all SNES ones, so there's really nothing to complain about with this game. And how is she still on my hammer? Alright, last items. It's only a crappy banana peel. First on the line, take that! Had to restrain myself from cursing too much there. But that wraps it up for this episode. That was generally a much more relaxing run, and I do honestly feel that Super Circuit itself, the Super Circuit tracks, are incredibly enjoyable, and I can't really nitpick too much with them. It's been a good game, even if I do prefer F-Zero. I will admit that this is probably one of the best Mario Kart games and a thoroughly underrated title. Apart from the occasionally janky handling, it's really solid, it's beautifully designed, it has some good music, and it does a good job of showing off the SNES tracks without a lot of the crap that went on in that game. You can't do anything about their terrible design, but for the most part you're gonna have a bit of fun. Our last episode, we'll be cruising through my favourites in those SNES tracks. Thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you out on the track for the last lap of Mario Kart Super Circuit.